There's only two under $300,000. And I dug into them.
Is Lake moving?
The lake is moving. That's the point I was getting at. The lake is appreciating. And that's what's going to happen. People are going to start gravitating where things are appreciating. That they're not huge numbers, but they are appreciating. Lake Monticello went up $13,000 second over third. Went up $17,000 over first over second. But here's the deal. 305 in the first. 322, 335. These are $300,000 homes. And the fourth quarter is going to be super interesting because that's when the real 7%, and that's the real upper number, and see if that number goes back. But, Lake Monticello and Spring Creek, for whatever reason, has increased in value quarter over quarter. Everything else.
What do you think that is?
So, Lake Monticello is where people can buy a home. Not a lot of them, right? They've lost 12 units quarter over quarter. Not a lot of them. Get in and get started and at least move forward on it, on the end of it. In Fluvanna County, it went the other way. It went down $21,000 in the county without Lake Monticello. So this is where the buyer has an opportunity. It's not a huge opportunity, frankly, but they have an opportunity. The Spring Creek, I didn't dig deep into it, but my suspicion is when I start digging into it, a lot of it is cash. A lot of it is people sold their homes end of last year. They're buying into it. I mean, I have the ability to look at each one of these units, but that would be my suspicion. Same thing on the other side of the mountain, right?
So would you not? Questions are coming in, guys. We'll get to Credit Suisse here.
Yeah, no, we can go that route if you want.
I'm getting a lot of folks saying that rent. Should we consider renting now?
Yeah. So again, I'll just play off of this one conversation I had with this young lady who's a young mother. On that end of it, she knows it's going up 12% next year, and she doesn't know what it's going to go. So, if you rent. So if you're right, if your interpretation of the market is right, that we're going to go backwards in 2023. Right, versus 2022 value.
This is what No. This is, so far I've been 100% on point here. Like literally dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Sure.
We have interest rates that are going to go higher. We have 2023 from a stocks and equity standpoint that is going to be more volatile. Powell is going to raise rates in October and November another half point.
He is going to
each month.
He is going to put us in a huge recession.
We haven't seen the impact of Credit Suisse yet, Deutsche Bank yet.
So we
haven't seen the impact of Hurricane Ian and in construction in Florida.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And how that's going to impact cost of goods and how that's going to impact labor and subcontractors.
First and foremost, we need to pray for everybody and get our thoughts and prayers out there.
We haven't seen that yet.
I've been through a couple of them.
We all have.
It's coming.
Yeah, we all have. We haven't seen how that's going to impact labor and cost of goods.
And the builders are backing off.
Inventory is going to go down.
Inventory is shrinking.
We're both in agreement that 2023 is going to be the tough time.
So I went back and looked at it.
We are not. You said the game is just getting started.
Oh, yeah.
So, as someone who's a huge proponent of home ownership, because I understand personally what that's been able to do, I want people to get in buying a house.
Oh, yeah, sure.
All of us are on the supply chain that's real estate. We want this to be as strong as humanly possible. I'm also trepid that if someone buys something now or the next quarter or the quarter after, They're essentially buying at top of the market.
So there's one little piece of information that you have not included in that. And it's something that I think this will chug along until unemployment starts rising. And that's when things are going to get really ugly. Credit Suisse is going to impact the world. Deutsche Bank's going to impact the world. What Powell is doing is going to impact the world. But when people start losing their jobs, right, and unemployment starts going up, that's when, okay, at least I've got a job and I can make my monthly payment, right? Or at least I have a job and I can now pay this extra 12% that's going to come up. When that number starts climbing, and this is very unique. We never really had, inflation at this number, Powell going, the Fed going up in the race that they're going, right? Without unemployment climbing with it. This is unusual, at least to my knowledge on it. But it's going to happen, I think. And I think it's going to happen part of 2023. And what I was trying to interrupt you, and I apologize for doing that, I actually saw an email back in 2019 that I sent to Michael Guthrie because we were talking about where do we think the real estate market's going to go flat or maybe down, and both of us called 2023, unbeknownst to us about COVID and all that great stuff, but just based on, feeling and being in the business as long as we have, and I think you're right. I think you're going to see 2023 flat. That doesn't mean we're not going to do business. We will do business. We will sell homes and help people buy homes. But the skill level to go ahead and make that happen is great. Got a contract that came in, and they put. If anybody's familiar with the real estate contracts, you can put in there the maximum interest rate, right? They put 7%. We kicked it back, said, yeah, that this isn't going to work. Right? So what happens is if it goes over 7% in the contract, they have a way to get out of the contract. Right? We said no. And up until now, you would never see that people would just leave that number blank. But there's a provision in the contract that you could say, this is the maximum interest rate that I'm prepared to pay on that end of it. And we were like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Right? We were on the list side. It's just
explain the Hurricane Ian for those that are watching.
Yeah, I've been reluctant to bring this up because there are a ton of people hurting. Unfortunately, people lost their lives, and I think you're going to find way more. I think that number is going to go up. But to put it in historical perspective, 2004, when Charlie came through, I was in the middle of building homes of 40, 50 houses a year at that point in time. And every piece of plywood, every piece of drywall, every laborer, every subcontractor all went south. I mean, literally went south to Florida. And we were trying to complete houses. At that point, we couldn't do it because we didn't have people. Didn't have materials, we didn't have people. And I'm trying not to be all doom and gloom here. I'm trying to be positive. That being said, the Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, the numbers we're looking at, our economic position is a bit precarious.
Precarious.
Thank you, precarious.
Yeah.
Something like that really can put us over the edge. More so than Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank's going to affect the world. But locally, in the United States, particularly on the Eastern Seaboard, if everything starts going down there, how are builders, and the builders are backing off, how are builders going to build houses if material are going down there? And oh, by the way, we haven't even seen the cost of this yet. And where's all that money going to come from to rebuild it? That's coming from the federal government. And then, as we were talking off air, I'm really excited. It's interesting. On one hand, I'm excited that an organization I'm part of has been shortlisted for UVA's affordable housing program over here, right? Where are they going to get their money from? Because I can assure you, next 12 to 24 months, the feds are going to start doing it. I mean, they're going to start contracting their dollars because they're going to have to. Eventually, they're going to have to look at their budget, and eventually they're going to have to, maybe not, calm down. Am I just babbling here, Mr. Miller?
No, I think.
But it's going to impact the hurricane down in Florida is going to impact us here. We haven't seen it yet, but it's going to. It will impact us.
I'm all for using the influence of the I Love Seville network to stimulate and drive the local economy. All for it. I'm also very mindful of the influence and the reach.
Agree.
And why the folks listen is because they know it's consultation and perspective that is sincere and genuine, authentic, and with their best interest. And I'm hesitant to even say this, but do you consider suggesting, and I'm just talking in general, that perhaps that they wait out this storm with another 1-year lease?
So everybody has to make their own personal decisions on that end of it. And we've said this numerous times on the show. Buying and selling, a lot of it has to do with, I've got to do it, right? For whatever reason.
Right.
Right.
You hear from folks, divorce is going to happen, people are going to have kids.
So putting that to the side.
Yeah, because that's not...
It's always going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not so divorce, I got a job. My son-in-law and daughter, they've got a job. They're moving to Richmond. They got to buy a house. They're about ready to have a child. They got to buy a house. So we'll put that to the side because we'll talk about how maybe we can help that buyer navigate this. But the seller that does not need this, and I mean, in saying this is going to hurt the other side of the equation, right? The buyer. But if you bought and you don't have to sell and you're making your monthly payments and you can put a little bit towards the principal, the best piece of advice is to hold tight. Now, as far as a rent goes, that's a decision, rent will go up because what's going to happen here is we're not building any more houses. It's just not going to happen, right? We're going to hit this
We've
cycle.
got 245 units coming on High Street.
I got 300.
Wendell Woods project.
I got 325 coming in Fluvanna County.
Yeah, we got the Southwood development coming.
Yeah, Southwood development. There's a couple of thousand coming, but this
got
is
the Friendship Court project coming.
There's all a bunch of. This is all time, right? This isn't stuff that's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months, right? So the reality of it is, if you want to sit tight and rent, and that's the right decision for you after you consulted your trusted advisors, then that's the right decision, right? That's the right decision. On the other hand, I may be wrong, and maybe we're overbuilding rentals, and maybe the rental market is due to stabilize and go back.
I mean, nationally, rents are coming down. That data's been released.
I don't see it around here, though. But a lot of these projects you just named aren't ready yet, right? So, for instance, in Fluvanna County, Colonial Circle, 50 to 60% AMI, it's a 125-unit rental thing. That will not be ready to be occupied probably into mid-24. They're going to start construction probably in the next 30 to 60 days on the foundation. It takes a good year and a half to build out a project that size. I'm just talking the building end of it. Forget about the subdivision side. Forget about the development side. That's just physically building that. So that's going to be mid-24 before those units enter the market. And if I'm in a unit and this young lady's rent just went up 12%, she made a decision to own. But these are.
I don't see the rents around here going up 12% year over year.
I just know with this particular.
Yeah. That's a unique anomaly.
It could very well be.
Yeah.
But even if they go up single digits, they're still going up every year.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're all for getting people in houses, and we're all encouraging anybody that's watching the program to buy a house, get in a house, talk to a trusted advisor, use local lenders, use the people in the supply chain that are local.
Absolutely. But sometimes So,
And I'm, trying to
so this is when the pros show up.
be a devil's advocate here to Keith. And and I see the comments that are coming on the feed from the viewers and listeners.
Yeah, sure.
That I'm paraphrasing on their behalf.
But these are the times. Again, I tend to forget cameras on and mic on, and it's just me and you talking. So I every once in a while I got to remind myself, I have this obligation, right, that you talk about all the time to folks. This probably will come out wrong, but I'm actually excited about the future of my real estate business and my wife's real estate business, because we can have these uncomfortable conversations around kitchen tables. I'm comfortable with them, right? We can bring the knowledge of many years of doing this to the table and have that conversation around the kitchen table.
I think you guys are going to do great because you guys have the experience and you've been there and done that. I think you guys are going to do great, undoubtedly. Let's cut to the chase. You're the only agent in Central Virginia that's got his own talk show.
Well, thank you to you.
That's a huge market differentiator versus your competition.
I want you to hear what I said. That's thanks to you.
Appreciate that.
Thanks to you, because I would have never done this if you didn't.
And as we talked about on Friday, like in times of difficulty, like having something that makes you stand out is paramount.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to open my heart a little bit here. I love having fun on the show. This is not a fun conversation.
No, and if we would be disingenuous if we came on this program as Credit Suisse is potentially on a collapse and we're sitting here joking and being jovial.
Yona, I came home all depressed I came home on Friday because I got this medical stuff going on. It's really putting a lot of pressure on me and the family and stuff like that. On the end of it, and Yona goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I went, I've got to figure out a way to have this conversation in this format, right? Where on one hand of it is we've got to be honest, we've got to be transparent, we've got to say, look, this is the reality of it. But I'll use the word hope. We have to offer solutions, right? So you and I come from a business background, right? If I have a problem and I bring you a problem, I want you to bring me 3 solutions. So we've got to bring solutions to it. But the reality of it is, this is when we got to shine. This is where people on this chain this real estate chain you talk about, this ecosystem you talk about, we need to shine. We need to have this conversation. For instance, Pearl certification. You know what? We got to get Pearl in there, right? We've got to do this. It's $300 and some odd, $400, whatever it is on it, but it's going to jump you 5%. Here's the proof from Woody Fincham that shows you that this will work. Oh, by the way, now's the time. Right? If you want to if you've got to sell your house, you're in that situation, call ISC, Interstate Service Company, and say, look, let's spruce up this kitchen, let's spruce up this bath. Garage doors, right, are now the number one. It's been for year over year. The ROI, return on investment, the closure title, all these different folks that we work with that come in to go ahead and bring their A game to the thing and have this conversation around the table. And this client that I helped over the weekend, she made that decision based on some counsel that we gave her. I was very 100% comfortable if she said, look, I'm going to rent for another year. I said, okay, great, good for you. Make sure you save some money, right? That's important, right? And but she made the decision and saw the picture, the bigger picture, to get into the system or get in the home ownership ladder, as I call it, on that end to move in. So this is a tough conversation, my friend.
Oh, I know it is.
And I love you with all my heart and soul. You know that. But this is a tough conversation to have.
And it's a tough one for me.
Yeah, sure.
It's a tough one for me because so many of so I realize, as you do, that so much of the community that we love is tied to real estate.
Right.
And I know, second largest GDP in the Commonwealth. That's a statistic, we often talk about here. But just talking straightforwardly, so much of the community we love is tied to the real estate community.
Well, just take a look at what happened in the time of great unpleasantness. It affected everybody.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Everybody.
So like I understand like and you know, like I also understand that like one of the skills that my wife talks about this all the time is like forward thinking and vision is one of the skills I have here. And I'm seeing down the road and I'm seeing like all these various folks that work in this field tied to this. And to say fragile is an understatement. And you know, we got a midterm election that's on the horizon. That's another unknown factor. We don't know what's the deal with Russia, Ukraine. We don't know the deal with stocks and equities. Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank. Powell is straight up raising rates for back-to-back months coming up. I just identified Hurricane Ian and the supply chain that is cost of goods and labor and how that's going to be impacted by $250 billion worth of damage in Florida that is roughly 18 hours from Charlottesville in Central Virginia. How that's going to impact subs.
And I think that number's low, by the way.
Yeah. So like I'm nervous about it. And I'm nervous about it. And fortunately, whether it is fortunate, we got the University of Virginia here that we hope is going to insulate and protect us. But let's cut to the chase here. It's fragile right now. And it is our responsibility to explain that fragility without scaring people, which I don't think any of us have done here. We've just been honest.
Yeah.
And let's be very straightforward. Today's average Joe and average Sally is entirely more sophisticated because of social media and because of digital media and phones than ever before.
It's funny you should say that. I was thinking, going back to our first
They
house,
all know this.
that I was thinking of the first house that Yona and I bought, right? Tell the story of 18%, yada, 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 yada. And we were 23, 24 years old. I can't remember. No, probably 25 at that point. At that point on it. It's amazing what we didn't know because there was no place to look it up, right? And we were like just so ecstatic that somebody was willing to even give us a loan.
Even in 2008, folks didn't know until
because you didn't have what we're doing right now.
Folks didn't know even in 2008, 2009 until we were really in it. I mean, you take the movie The Big Short.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene in The Big Short and the movie Margin Call where, like, the guys are literally that are in the business are walking around and looking through the Big Apple in Manhattan, and they see people just going around doing their day-to-day lives. And the guys that were the insiders, you know, they call them the sharps. The sharps literally made the comment in the movies, these folks don't even know what's going on. And now that's not the case.
So that's what I knew what was going to happen in 2008 because I was caught up in it, right? And I tell this story all the time, when they were offering me money and pay me interest rates to go ahead and borrow money from them here. Each market's a little bit different. So again, let's try to offer a little bit of forward thinking, right? Here and again, if you bought a home in Charlottesville or Albemarle this year, you're going to sit tight for a while. Right?
That's the most straightforward thing you said here on the show today.
You're going to sit. Well, I said it earlier, but you're going to sit tight. Now the question, so that seller right now, that's not really who we should be talking about, right? Because that seller right now
is not going to sell.
Is not going to sell.
Yeah, this is the kind of conversation we have.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, this is the kind of conversation that we have. If you have an interest rate of 4.5% or 5% or below,
I don't care if you bought it today and you had a 7%
and build equity. And keep cash position as deep as possible.
So it's called buy and hold, as you well know.
Chop down credit card debt and floating debt, because that credit card debt is going to float higher with Powell raising rates in October and November. There's a reason your monthly payments are higher than they've ever been. It's because the floating debt is getting more difficult to
so you might want to
keep in check.
You might want to define what floating debt is, so people.
Credit card debt.
Yeah, got it. So your credit card debt is tied. I know, but some folks may be watching or listening may not know what that means.
Yeah, credit card debt is tied to prime.
Tied to prime.
Powell is raising the
credit
rates.
Credit card debt, your development money is tied to that. or what should we
Your
call it?
automobile
Your
loans?
automobile's tied to that. You know, we learned that. You know, we're fortunate. We have zero credit card debt, right? Whatever we put on, we pay off every month.
That is fortunate.
We use
Right
it
now,
as a
the
tool.
country is at the highest credit card debt in American history.
Only because I remember all too well 2008 going forward. So if I bought a house today, if I bought a house last year, hell, if I bought a house in 19, unless you've got to move, and you know, look, we're in the business that we need inventory, right? But the reality of it is that
And John Blair said this. Explained this very well.
That seller, yeah, the math is the math. The reality of it is that seller isn't moving unless they have to, right? Unless there's a job relocation, God forbid a death, you know, a divorce or something like that. And that's the reason the inventory is dropping. These sellers don't have to sell. They don't have to sell. They sit tight, right? And if I was at 3%, 2%, 7%, 6%, 8%,
But take my wife and I.
Take Keith and Jonas, you're 100% right.
We had this is why people like
This is where the
content
generation.
we do. We had an offer on the show
Yeah, you
that was eye-popping
Yeah, you mentioned that.
on our house. Eye-popping.
Where are you going to go?
Not just where we're going to go. It's this eye-popping offer. The money that we walk away from, the bag of money that we walk away from, we're going to put 20% down wherever we go. That 20% on whatever we would buy now doesn't go nearly as far as when we bought in March of 2020.
So
On top of that, the interest rate we got in March of 2020, 4%. Now it's, call it 7%, 3 points higher. So the down payment doesn't go as far, and then the monthly payment is substantially more. In some cases, twice as more.
So there's another side to this. So if I bought a single-family detached home in 2000, hold on a second, let me get back to Charlottesville since we've been talking about Charlottesville. Make sure I got my numbers right here. Just give me one moment, please, folks. So if I bought a home in 2018, so that's 5 years ago, in Charlottesville, single-family detached, the median sales price on that was $360,000, right? So I held it for 5 years. I held it for 10 years. You know, my value will go up. You know, not huge numbers, but it will go up. And as I start paying my mortgage payment down, my extra payment, my equity comes up. The reason I'm bringing this up is Keith and Jonas are in this spot, right? Right. We're in our house for 20 years. We have some really, really good equity and appreciation in our house, right? If Mrs. Smith convinces me to move on that end of it, I'm going to end up with a chunk of change. And if the market is softening a little bit, I'm in a great position to buy at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? To go ahead and do that. So again, to offer positive, and be an advocate for buying and holding, that's an example, right? Some people that have bought in 19 or 18 have appreciated a little faster than I have, because it took me 20 years to appreciate what happened in the last 5 years
Right.
out there, right? But I was in the house for 20 years, which is unusual, right? Most people do not.
You got a great house. You built it.
I built it, and I got my stuff.
Yeah, you like your toys.
I like my toys. I got my stuff. One of these days, I'll actually take you fishing on my boat. I haven't been in it for 2 years. But anyway, it's sitting in the driveway.
Looking forward to that.
It's sitting in the driveway on that end of it. I'm actually looking forward to doing that without this and just going out and having fun on that end of it. But it's interesting. The show, Real Talk, is going to have to start shifting. And I don't think I realized that until this show, to be honest with you. I realized it on Friday a little bit, trying to figure out how.
I know how it's got to shift.
Yeah, I know you do on that end of it, but I'm speaking from my heart out that it has to shift. But I also want to be the voice of saying, okay, this is how we can do this together, folks. Right? This is exactly what we did when COVID hit. It's literally what we did. We had masks on. We were doing what we were doing, but we offered a path forward. on
This
that.
is how the show should shift. And you have a lot of responsibility too.
I think,
is
I think, yeah, I understand.
Path, Real Talk should offer clarity on how folks on the real estate supply chain, every niche and vertical, can hedge risk at a time of uncertainty and volatility.
Sure. So we
And if you become the voice of minimizing risk at a time of uncertainty and volatility, you will gain
yeah.
market share.
And I'll be honest with you, that's who we are anyway, right? It's just how do we, and it's amazing. This is 3.5 years. What today was show was 347, I think, somewhere along those lines. I may have my numbers. Yeah, 347 out that way. And the show has always changed, right? It's changed,
Because
right?
the market changes.
Well, the market changes. It's 3.5 plus years. Everything changes. So I do want to do exactly as you said, but I also want to have a little fun too doing it, which I'm looking forward to Halloween because Batman and Robin will be back again.
Yeah, we're going to
So-
be wearing tights.
No, we're not going to be wearing. Batman and Robin is going to be.
Batman and Robin are going to be wearing tights. Absolutely. Batman and Robin are going to be wearing tights.
So we talked about the sell side, right? So if you don't have to sell, and this is not good, but people are not going to like hearing this about the inventory. It's going to hurt it, right? There's not going to be enough foreclosures to really impact it, in my opinion, on that end of it. It might impact it a little bit, but people are going to sit tight. Keith and Yon are going to sit tight. Mr. and Mrs. Miller are going to sit tight and wait for maybe if Mr. Morris is right, the interest rates drop to 4 or 5%. Now, again, historically in recessions, by the way, mortgage rates do drop. So that there is a likelihood that could happen with, if it does or not, that's yet to be told. But historically, if you take a look at a bunch of recessions, as you got deeper into the recession, right, the mortgage rates drop. So that could be the case.
We'll get to comments here. Grayson and guys, we haven't had a chance to get to some
I'm
comments
sorry.
here. We've been paraphrasing them here because it's tough commentary. Here's a great one from Grayson Long watching the show. Keith, I know this show is awkward for you because you represent the real estate community and much of what you do is tied to real estate, including your livelihood. I want you to realize, though, that this awkwardness is what we're looking for in our household.
Yeah.
It helps us decipher what we need to do in these trying times. Please continue doing talk shows like this where you're offering clarity, as Jerry said, and volatility, because that's why I watch this program.
So, thank you. I will continue to do that. So we are, if I remember correctly, they own, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, in the city of Charlottesville.
They own in the city of Charlottesville. So depending on when they bought, the advice that I gave out, it's probably best to sit tight and hold for a little while. Now, depending on what year they bought and what their interest rates was and what their appreciation is and of course the best piece of advice I can give anybody. Again, I wasn't able to convince this young lady who bought the land trust home, but please pay down your principal. Extra couple payments to your principal. It's the
Woody
best.
Fincham.
Hey, Woody.
We bought in 2017, 2.7% rate, and we are not moving anytime soon.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to move, but it's going to become normal, and the market will react accordingly.
Absolutely.
This is an appraiser, Fincham and Associates,
One of the
offering
best
that
out
perspective.
there. So how are we going to have this conversation? And this is
This is what I would do if I were you, and you're the
11:22.
executive producer of your show here. But this is what I would do if I were in your shoes, and you're the voice of real estate, which in a lot of ways you've become because you're the only one that has his or her own talk show.
got it.
You come up with plans of attack for Real Talk that help people hedge risk.
Got it. Well, I appreciate the term hedge risk, but that's not a term I'm going to use on the end of it. But I understand what it means. I understand what it is.
That is the scenario we're in right now.
Yeah.
People's
What-
401ks and retirement accounts are down 25 and 30%.
So I'm going to change the words around a little bit. What we want to do is help people make the right decisions for them.
That's hedging risk.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use the term "make the right decisions for them and their family" on that end of it, because You know, everybody's different. But we haven't talked about, and it's 11:23. We haven't talked about is we're talking about the seller end of it, right? Okay, and the seller end of it is, you know, again, if you bought in the last few years, it's buy and hold, right? Woody Fincham is a prime example. We bought 20 years ago. I'm still holding. Or built 20 years ago. I'm still holding on that end of it. How are we going to help Mr. and Mrs. Weidel buy a home? How are we going? And let me finish, please.
Yeah.
So I hear loud and clear. This is not the show I had planned today, which is great.
But you had to know this was going to be the case.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been doing it long enough. I know what's going on here. But I hear you. I hear what folks are saying. And I think future shows, we're going to have to come up with, okay, first-time home buyer or buyer, what can we do today in today's market? How can we help navigate today's minefields, for lack of a better term?
First-time home buyers, strategies for you to purchase a home.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get to as many comments as possible here, as it's
By the
11:24,
way,
but
thank you
we'll go longer. First-time home buyers, you want to try to navigate this? Here are some housing hacks for you. Consider purchasing a house and then potentially renting out some rooms to help you with some mortgage payments. Would it be uncomfortable? Sure. Is it going to help you navigate a monthly payment that is going to be much higher than you anticipated? Yes. First-time home buyers, you want some strategies to help you? Consider the seller finance approach. You have sellers that are going to have inventory on the market that's going to be long from a days on market standpoint. Perhaps you go to the seller and say, why don't we consider doing a 3-year or 5-year term where you carry the paper? This minimizes your capital gains exposure. This allows you to get a monthly payment every single month that is going to help from a budgeting standpoint. And then after 3 or 5 years, you're going to get the entire month, the entire nut of what's left on the on what the buyer owes you. That's another one. Rent to own. I wouldn't be surprised if rent to own becomes a reality again because interest rates are so high. Consider the rent to own path if you're a first-time home buyer. First-time home buyers, consider the multifamily approach. Your mom, your dad, your grandparents, maybe your siblings are in tough financial times right now because of every factor we know. Maybe you buy a house and you consider the multifamily approach to help with your overhead. These are house hacks. These will help you as a first-time home buyer. All of the above would work. In fact, I personally have done 2 of 4 of those myself. This is the type of consultation that if we air on this show and on this network, people will galvanize toward.
Yeah, but we want to pick some of that apart, right? Because a lot of that is not as, you know, if we want to, it's not as easy as what we've said, right? Because I've done seller finances. I personally have done seller finances on that end of it. So I've noted them down. These are hacks, as you talk about. They can do that, but they're going to require a bunch of time to talk about what's the pitfalls of seller financing. Let me finish, please. What's the positive? What's the negative of it? Is that best for you? We just can't blanketly say that.
No,
out.
I said it's a suggestion path.
I understand
Yeah.
that. You gonna let me finish?
Yeah.
So
I have the entire show.
Thank you. So renting rooms, that's a great idea. We've all done that. But will your HOA allow you to do that?
Of course they will.
Of course they won't. You're not LMOA. You're not allowed to rent. You're not allowed to have somebody who's not related to you inside your house.
Charlottesville City has that rule and
just
doesn't
telling
have anyone that enforces it.
Just,
Albemarle County
but
has
I can
that
tell
rule.
you, I can tell you, like I know that firsthand. I can tell you, Lake Monticello Owners Association will, because the next door neighbor drops a dime on it. I've seen it happen. My next door neighbor did that, and we didn't do it, but somebody did it. So there's little holes that we're going to have to punch out. So multi-generational is a big thing. It's growing. I think it was 14% of the market last year. You're going to see that grow even more on that end of it. But these are all great house hacks, as you noted. But they do, there is another side to it. It is, we have to help people guide them through that process.
Stephen watching the program, and welcome to the program, Beth Marcus. Stephen watching the program. Yes, Jerry, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we are looking for. Woody Fincham, foreclosures will become an issue if the employment levels shift.
Agreed.
Powell made it clear we need to shed some human capital. Employment drives residential markets. He also said, be careful on seller-held notes, seller finance. If the seller has a mortgage, it could trigger a call. Do not do a seller finance deal if you're the seller, if you still have a mortgage.
Well, don't-
If you trade your house in a seller finance capacity, your mortgage 100% will be called.
Well, yeah, exactly right. So
You
that
want to do it if you don't have a mortgage.
correct. You can't do it if you have a mortgage.
Oh, you can. You can do it if you have a mortgage. You
You'll
just
just
have to
lose it.
get the down payment that covers the nut that you owe the bank.
Yeah, correct.
If you have
you gotta
a
pay it.
house
You
and
gotta
you
pay
owe
it.
200,000 to the bank, you need 200,000
That's
from the
exactly
buyer,
right. That's
then you
exactly
pay the bank, and then you can finance the house.
But as far as the seller side, the 1031 exchange, depending on where they're at, is a great path on seller finance.
1031 exchanges work on investment properties, not
No, no.
personal residences.
Depends on how much money you have and your net worth and all that kind of great stuff. So if you're over $500,000 for a couple, it could impact it on that end of it. Yeah, so you're 100% right. If seller, don't do seller financing as a seller. Don't even be part of a seller financing thing if there's money out there owed, because the bank is not going to let you do it.
You can do it if the money you get covers the nut you owe to the bank.
Yeah, so now what you're saying is that I'm going to do seller financing in your scenario. I got to bring 200,000 cash to the table. That's not going to happen. First time home
The
buyers.
seller finance doesn't have to be 200.
Yeah.
If the owner of the house has 25,000, he owes the bank.
Usually the
Or
one
30,000.
and I've done enough of these over the years. Generally, as you noted, they're paid off. They're free and clear, right? They're already paid off their home. They bought it in cash. They've been in their house for 20 years. So Keith and Yona Smith could seller finance our house because our loan is,
Minuscule.
well, yeah, less than minuscule. But
No.
yeah, so we could do that, right? We could do that. We can get X amount of dollars in that kind of thing and help somebody buy the house. Now, the buyer who's buying my house isn't the first time home buyer, right? That's not who's going to buy that particular house.
If you created a show that navigated this market and helped buyers and sellers navigate this market with non-traditional strategies, then
Well-
yes, your business would boom.
Yeah, but we also have to help people through traditional strategies because they were not around. The traditional strategies of buying a home wasn't around the last 2 years. That wasn't traditional. It was insane. It was insane. No home inspections, right? You know, there's people that were buying homes sight unseen, right? All that insanity has gone away, which is a blessing, frankly, on that end of it. But you have to bring in. You've mentioned the food, the ecosystem. You have to bring in the experts to go ahead and do it. You bring in a Woody Fincham, right? And they say, I am what they call the ambassador, the land ambassador for Keller Williams Alliance, the Keller Williams National. And I get these phone calls all the time. Hey, help me through this thing, so forth and so on. And there was a client that a real estate agent called me out of Richmond and said, look, I don't know how to evaluate this piece of property. I said, well, pick up the phone and call Woody, call an appraiser, and have them evaluate it for you so you do it. And this agent goes, I never thought of that. So we're going to have to think outside of the box, right? The box that we've been in the last 2 years has been so, you know.
Jonathan wants to know how the seller finance approach works, Jerry. Do a show on seller finance deals.
Sure.
I mean,
I've got notes. I've been taking notes feverishly.
I bought a
So I'll explain.
great chunk of the Macklin building was all seller finance deals. Not a single bank finance unit in this building.
So
Not a single one.
So we bought a rental, the one rental we have. We bought it in seller financing, and how it happened was a client of ours. Just to walk you through how it works, was a client of ours had a bit of a family tragedy happen. Didn't want the cash, the whole cash. So I said, look, how about we do a seller financing? It was paid free and clear. We put 10% cash down. We negotiate.
Non-refundable, 10%.
It's non-refundable. Negotiated a pretty darn good rate. this was last year, so it was the rate that was going at that particular point in time.
Generally, seller finance deals are done 1 point above market.
We were exactly 1 point over market, and went through the normal closing process. Reached out to Bill Tucker, Charlottesville Settlement, closure title, had them work up the first deed of trust. This is not difficult to do. We can put this stuff together. Went ahead and closed it. I did a 7-year balloon with a 30-year amortization. So in 7 years, I've got to pay that off. And I actually negotiated the deal that if I sell it a little bit earlier, there's a bonus to the other owner, a percentage of the interest that he would lose if I sell it prior to 7 years.
If you sell or refinance.
Sell or refinance. If I make his loan go away,
Yeah.
there's an incentive to him that he gets paid a percentage over. It's a percentage of the interest he would have lost in
Because
7 years.
this particular seller wants the 7 years of payments, 84 payments, because this particular seller knows if he gets 84 payments, he's going to make more money in the house than if he sold it in real time. He gets 84 monthly payments at X amount of interest per month. Then he gets the entire remaining balance paid on the 85th month. So he makes more money on his condominium or townhome than if he sold it on the market in
So
real
it was
time.
a rental property, so then he now has the runway to work with his CPA to say, okay, I'm going to get paid X amount of dollars 7 years from now. How can we protect myself from a tax thing? And it
Tax
works.
planning and minimizing capital gains exposure.
So it's funny because Yona and I want to buy more rentals. The only way I'm ever going to buy a rental is this way. And if you want to do that, all you got to do is go into GIS and figure out who doesn't have a mortgage anymore. It's
Well,
not that
I think what's
complicated.
going to happen, here's what I think is going to happen.
But
You're going to start seeing these properties locally started getting long in the tooth from a days on market standpoint.
Oh, you're already doing it.
And as the properties get long in the tooth from a days on market standpoint, some of these sellers, because they either got divorced, they had a death in the family, they had to take a new job, are going to start getting antsy. And as they start getting antsy, they're going to be more open-minded to other financing vehicles. And one of these financing vehicles is going to be this path of attack. And there's a stigma around this path of attack that it's complicated, but it's not.
You're talking about seller finance.
Yeah.
It is not. No.
It's not complicated.
But your advice is right. And that's why I said earlier, you need, the best deal is the deal that they don't owe the bank any money. That's the one you want to go after. But talk about long in the tooth.
Or you could look at the GIS and say when they purchased it. If they purchased it, say, 22 years ago, you'd be like, they have 8 years left on a 30-year term. Then you can run a simple amortization schedule of when they purchased it, what the interest rate was, what they likely put as a down payment. Then you can extrapolate what money is left on the property.
It's funny.
And then you just put the down payment based on what you think the money is left on the property.
So the last time that the market was the way it was, I would actually show up to listings and say, yeah, you've got about this much left on your mortgage. And, well, how do you know that? I said, well, it's really simple. All you got to do is...
This is not complicated. This is arithmetic.
If Smith can do it, it's not that
It's
complicated.
arithmetic, yeah.
But to talk about Charlottesville, long in the tooth, active right now, single-family detached, no new construction. There's 38 homes available, 29 days on the market. Now, it's not this 60-day, which is my magic number in this area. Nationwide is around 90 days. When we start getting close to 60 days, that's when this whole pendulum is going to switch. But the median list price is $467.
Dude, if you did a show on these strategies,
Albemarle.
it would go viral.
Albemarle County is at 45 days right now.
There you go.
Albemarle County is at 45
And those
days.
45 days, that 45 days DOM is not truly indicative yet of what the rising interest rates have done to the market.
No, that's today. That's at this given moment.
But my point is, we're at 7.
The-
Wait till you see what happens the following quarter for the DOM.
But it's interesting though, because I was looking at different price. I didn't have time to crunch the numbers, but I was looking at different price points, and this is a show for the future. The million and up is much more than that.
Oh yeah.
Way more than that.
Well, I mean, if you're in a position, if you're in a position where you have cash, and this is not everybody, if you're in a position and you have cash, like a deep cash, there's fire sale opportunities out there where you can go to particular people and say, I'm going to give you 15, 20% below market, all cash, close in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. And if you start looking at some of the upper, but I think what you're going to see, and it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think what you're going to start seeing is this middle price range is the ones that's going to be moving. I think the upper end is going to slow down, and the lower end is definitely slowing down, because it's just the monthly nut is. Everybody buys home at that price. At the million plus, they don't necessarily buy it by monthly payment, right? The stock market over there impacts that more than anything on the million plus, but the entry level, they buy by the monthly payment. And as I said earlier in the show, and Woody just seconded that, my biggest thing I'm watching right now is where we're at with unemployment. If unemployment starts ticking up,
Foreclosures.
it's the one piece of the puzzle that hasn't been put in this recessionary time we're in now on that end of it. Once that piece of puzzle gets put in there, then it's going to be a different show, a different conversation. But at the moment, salaries are increasing, not a lot, but at least people have jobs to make their rent payments, to make their mortgage payment.
Kevin Higgins.
Hey, Kevin.
Watching the program right now. Comments, we're going to get to as many of them as possible. I'm just waiting for you guys to grab the microphone and go outside and engage the public. People are your greatest strength. I would not worry about the unexpected. Do it. It would take the show to a different level. Stacy, watching the program. Love when you watch the show, Stacy. The uncomfortable is what we need right now. We need to hear realistic perspective to help us all navigate the market.
Okay.
More coming in like this. Yes, please give us the uncomfortable and the awkward on the show. That's
No spandex?
I mean, it's
I'm only kidding.
We will definitely wear Halloween costumes here.
I'm looking forward to that. So overnight, Lake Monticello.
Please do an entire show on seller finance deals.
Yeah. So Lake Monticello went up to 18 to 21 units. 3 under 300,000. 87 days on one on the market, and 35. One just came on this morning at 0 days. And I looked at that one at 87. Whenever they say in it cash or conventional only, that means something's going on. So,
What does that tell you?
well, that tells me if it doesn't sell in a while, I think that's going to turn into a short sale. That's what that's telling me.
Do you, here's another interesting proposition, right? You got a neighborhood that has a developer or builder behind it that wants to maintain price point because comps determine future development.
I've been there, done that before.
Going to that scenario and saying, I'll help you maintain price points because comps determine future development and future phase 2, 3, 4, and 5 iterations, and going to the phase 1 iteration and say, we can maintain your price point at closing time, so it's recorded at this number, which you need, but we're going to create a financing vehicle or scenario that's going to be advantageous for me. And that could be seller fi, could be the rent to own.
Well, the bigger builders have their own financing programs. They've always had their own big financing programs. But it's interesting, and actually I'm talk about a future show. I'm working on trying to bring some folks in from Stanley Martin Homes and back into the custom to do that. But I'm already seeing it. Stuff that you haven't seen before, like free upgrades. Finish the basement.
That's what I'm saying.
Finish the basement.
Yeah.
Finish the basement, right? So what that does is
Creates equity out of the gates.
that's exactly right. So what happens so the people understand that. So if I am going to go ahead and get $50,000 worth of free basement for
And
them,
then what can you do?
well, what happens? What records?
It records, so the builder wins,
Everybody, and then the community starts growing in valuation.
and
But
then
that's-
the buyer
but
can
that's-
take that $50,000 finished basement and all the upgrades, get the house reappraised
Well,
in
that-
12 months,
well, that-
18 months, 24 months, and then refinance.
So that's a question for Woody.
He's watching.
Yeah, I know that. I would not want to answer that question. I would want Woody to answer that question. I don't know if that's going to be $50,000 that you get instant equity, and that's something that Woody can answer for us. So if I'm building a house and my builder's giving me $50,000 worth of credits in the basement, does that connect to my appraised value, right? I don't know the answer to that, but Woody would.
Great question for you, Woody.
And so if that's the case, then what we're batting around makes sense. If Woody looks at that and goes, no, 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 I'm not going to give you that valuation for that, then it's not the case on that end of it, right? But, logic would say, and I'm not an appraiser, I don't even play one on a Facebook talk show, right? But if they give you $50,000 worth of, but the point I'm making, that's what's starting to happen. They're paying closing costs. 2 years ago, that never happened. That was like, you want a house? Here you go. So they're paying closing costs now. They're going ahead and giving upgrades, which is what they used to do, prior to 19 and 18 on that end of it. They used to give you upgrades, and that's starting to creep its way back in.
Travis, welcome to the show in Danville.
I still need to make it out to Danville, Travis.
Spencer, he's right. He's right, Keith. These are the type of topics we want to hear.
Okay. Got it. I got notes all over my book here.
I know this was not the fun show you wanted.
No, so to your point, we were going to talk numbers, right? And I spent literally 16 to 18 hours crunching numbers yesterday and making nice little slides. All you got to do is look at all the red, right? There's a bunch of red on this, right? So it's
You're in a very unique position. And
it's
why you're in this unique position is because of 350 shows.
Yeah, 347 shows.
347 shows.
Yeah.
You have a brand. You've become an institution. And because of this
Are you
brand,
sending me to an institution, is what you said?
because of this brand and because of this unique position you're in, there's the
374.
374.
374.
There's massive responsibility that comes with it. The folks don't know who the card president is, but they know who Keith Smith is.
Yeah. So,
You realize that?
thank you.
It's always easy in great times. Anyone can pick, I was having this conversation with my dad. Anyone's a great stock picker in bull markets. You truly realize the value of someone who can decipher data in a bear market.
The thing that I've always say about myself, I'm always right about the things that are not so rosy. I just want to be right about the winning lottery ticket numbers every once in a while on that end of it. Look, I hear you. I hear everybody on the feeds, and I get it, and I understand it. And I couldn't figure out, Yona couldn't figure out, I couldn't figure out why I was so blue, other than this medical thing I got going on Friday and through the weekend. And I think today helped me through that. So I want to say thank you to everybody. Let me finish, please. Thank you to everybody on the feed, listening, and you, Jerry, on it. I think I got some clarity today, so I appreciate that very much so.
Absolutely. And I'm feeling that perhaps you may, because I know you quite well, I spent a lot of time with you, I have a feeling that you may be leaving here a little blue.
Yeah, nobody, look, everybody likes to talk about rainbows and puppies, right?
Right.
And have fun and all that stuff. And, 374 shows ago, I made a commitment to myself that if I wasn't going to have fun, I don't know if I wanted to do this any longer, right? But now the reality, look, I'm a Marine. I served our country. I got blown up. my health problems I've got is from when I was in the service that frankly have no way going backwards. If I can stabilize it, I'll be freaking lucky on that end of it. So I understand service, I understand giving back, and now this is what I have to do, right? This is where we're at, and we have this format, and I truly mean this looking at you. Thank you for doing that, because
Absolutely.
I couldn't figure out why I was so bummed out. And look, again, I'm gonna go hug a puppy. I'm gonna go hug Liza, and I'll be all fine. I'll be fine with that. I also just this personal stuff going on is a little bit heavy on my mind too, to be honest with you. So if I'm
Totally.
being transparent and honest about
And
it.
Wednesday you have?
Wednesday's got Scott Morris, so we're gonna dig into this stuff.
Yeah, that's a perfect guy for this.
We're gonna dig into this stuff, and then Friday, depending on how my piss test goes.
Well, either way,
Neil will be here regardless.
Yeah.
Either I'm going to be in Richmond getting an infusion, or I'll be sitting in this seat. Either one of the two.
So either way, Neil Williamson.
Either
on
way,
Friday.
Neil Williamson.
Yeah, we're very excited about that.
So these are the perfect, as you said, these are the perfect people
For this.
for exactly what we're talking about.
Because did you see his retail tax
I
white
saw
paper?
that. I saw that.
Did you notice that the retail taxes are going flat?
They're not going in the right direction,
Right.
which only means what?
That's going to mean the jurisdictions are going to raise real estate tax rates.
That's exactly
because the retail taxes are flat or going down.
Well,
in the wrong direction.
it's even worse than that, right? Your assessed value is going to go up.
And the real estate tax
And
rate
the real
is
estate's going to go up, and I, and Neil will correct me if I'm wrong, because he always does. I can't remember but once or twice that a jurisdiction's budget went backwards.
It doesn't go backwards.
It never does.
Yeah, Nelson County
Would
has
be the exception.
Yeah.
Nelson County would be the exception.
Right.
So here's your triple threat: Charlottesville, Fluvanna County, Albemarle County, Greene County. Your budget's going up, right? Because it always does. Your assessed values are going up, and your interest rates are going up. I'm at a point now with my house. It always was. Literally, if you were to take my house and go couple of miles over into Albemarle County, it was worth about $100,000 more. That's not the case any longer. And my cash out of my pocket, the cash out of my pocket every year is almost, in Fluvanna County, I have to calculate in my HOA, right? Because I'm talking about out in the county, not in like Glenmore or some other subdivision. I'm on par, man. I'm paying the same amount of money in Fluvanna County as somebody that would own 2 acres, because I'm on 2 acres, in Albemarle County. And we're way over. I'm sorry. I just realized we're at 11:51.
And guys, we're not going to get to the comments as many as
We'll save them
we'll
for
save them
Wednesday.
for Wednesday. Real
But
talk with Keith
but
Smith.
thank you.
Multiple people are saying thank you, and this is what they want.
Yeah. Thank you. I got more, Jerry, folks, I got more out of today than I ever provided to anybody. I'm literally about ready to tear up. It's the Irish in me. I'm a bit emotional. So I got more out of today, more out of what you provided, what the listeners and the viewers provided, than I ever gave. So thank you.
Real talk, guys. He's real.
That's the reason we're calling it.
He's straight. It's real talk. Literally, the name is so applicable right now
Yeah.
than it's ever been in the history of the show.
Well, I think that
Because the history of the show
Well,
has been a bull market
well,
until the last 90 days.
so bull, bear, all this stuff. I'm talking about emotions, right? When COVID hit us hard and that was that deep V, people were scared.
But that was short.
Well,
Very short-lived.
But
And then the response was
people,
very vertical.
100%. But people at that, I went back and watched them, the few shows, and we were calling this V, and everybody. I mean, I got emails and texts that I shouldn't be saying that. I was doing wrong. This is going to be long and protracted. I'm not being considerate of other people. I mean, I got all kinds of nasty remarks when we did that, but we called it. It did the V.
You called it perfectly.
No, we did.
Yeah.
This is different, though. You're 100% right. This is different. This feels different. It is different. But we're going to offer some clarity, We're going to help people navigate through this. And we'll do it together, Jerry. Thank you.
Absolutely. Keith Smith, Jerry Miller, Judah Wickhauer is the director of the show. The I Love CVille show is up at 12:30. We're going to have as guests the women behind Anna's Number 5. 46 years of legacy in this community. And we will showcase their journey as businesswomen, entrepreneurs, and as a family that has served 3 generations in the Charlottesville and Central Virginia and UVA community. A show that will undoubtedly go viral. Thank you kindly for joining us. We will see you in about 37 minutes. Take care. That right there, tell us when we're on.